And welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the Kevin Wright Show. You are here with me, Kevin Wright, on the Kevin Wright Podcast, and it's good to be with you. Today we're talking about diets and what you eat and how you eat. Probably one of the biggest questions I get on a regular basis is what's your diet and what do you eat? Some stats on me real quick is I am in my late 30s and I weigh about 185 pounds and I've always been pretty lean. But, as you start getting older, it's more and more difficult to stay in shape. And so dieting becomes an important thing. But I love discussing diets with people, and I love discussing what we eat for a number of reasons because it tells you a lot about each other. It tells you about how we spend our time. It talks about personality. You get to really know somebody. I was on a date the other night, and we started discussing like our regular diet routine, and instantly we got insight into each other's lives. Instantly we started learning about who each other was. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my diet journey, and hopefully there's some things that you can use, and maybe I'll learn something from it as well. I've tried everything. I've tried every diet. I've tried them all because I wanted to try them all. I really went on this journey. I went through some major life crisis. I went through a very difficult divorce. I went through some loss in my family. This was all about, through the last, 5-6 years. And I thought, man, what are the things that I can control in my life? What are the things that I truly can have control of? And the number one thing that I kept coming back to, the number one thing that I thought I could see progress in was diet. Was my diet experience. What am I putting into my mouth? What am I putting into my body? And how can I control that? There's something so rewarding about seeing your body lose weight or feeling good on a regular basis because you had discipline in the way you were eating or you were getting more water in your system. And for me, I struggle with depression. I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with, feeling like maybe the world isn't fair so many times. One of the things that helps me through it a lot is eating good food and eating right and eating the right way for me. It makes me feel more positive. It makes me feel more encouraged. It makes me feel like I can take on the world a little bit better and a little bit stronger. So I've tried a number of different things for philosophical reasons, for spiritual reasons. I've tried a number of different diets. And I've come to a conclusion. I'll tell you where I'm at the very end, but let me take you through some of the journey of my diet experience. I used to backpack quite a bit, and I was backpacking along the Deschutes River. I had this goal one summer. I went on kind of a vision quest. I wanted to backpack and camp and sleep under the stars along as much of the Deschutes River in Oregon as I could. And the Deschutes River is really magical. It flows south to north, and then it deposits into the massive Columbia River. And the Deschutes River kind of covers a lot of Oregon. And so you get to see a lot of the different countryside. You get to go through, beautiful, beautiful river valleys here in Oregon and be in the mountains. And it's a huge elevation change. Anyways, one night I was out camping and sleeping under the stars, which was really scary, and I didn't get much sleep. And I finally fell asleep, and I woke up as the sun was coming up. And there was a baby cow, a calf, nestled up next to me. And it scared the hell out of me. It scared the shit out of me, actually. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a coyote. And I realized, this is a baby cow. And I started looking around for the bulls and the mothers and the farmers and everything. And all it was just me laying by the river, and there was this calf. And it really kind of looked into my eyes and had a moment with me. And I got real worried about my experience with eating meat. I had a spiritual connection to this little creature. I started thinking about all the red meat that I had been eating, and I decided to quit eating meat for a year just to try it. My inspiration was spiritual. It was connection to this animal, was thinking that this animal has a soul, and I was going through that journey, which is pretty typical for motivation for a lot of people who quit eating meat. Also, I got to be honest, I was dating somebody who was a vegetarian at the time, and I really, really wanted to impress them. So there was a double whammy. Fuck, I'm just finding out. I'm just remembering that. So I was trying to impress her as well. But I did. I decided to commit to it, and I said I'm just going to try it for a year. So I tried being a vegetarian for a year. Not because I was looking for a health benefit. I tried it because I really wanted to try to connect with people who are advocates for, keeping animals free of cruelty and extreme practices against killing animals and keeping animals in inhumane ways. And so I studied about it, and I decided while I was being a vegetarian, I was going to learn. I was going to go to slaughterhouses. I was going to see, who does it best. I was going to see how people are treating animals in the meat market. I was going to research and read books, and I did. I spent hours and hours researching how meat is processed in America. I spent hours visiting slaughterhouses. I went to our local chop shops and had a major experience. For a long time, I thought I would never go back. For the longest time, I thought I would be a vegetarian forever. I will say this, during my year as a vegetarian, I did not feel that great. I got along. I got through life. I lost a few pounds. It wasn't a major hindrance. It was a little bit more expensive than my meat eating life. But it wasn't the best I ever felt. It wasn't, when I compare all the diets that I've been on, it wasn't the one to me where I felt the best. But I did really get in touch with what it's like to defend animal rights. And I really dealt with that. There was one thing, though, that helped me kind of get over my worries about defending the soul of animals and what it's like to kill an animal, and my worries there. I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast one time, and he was talking about hunting and ethical hunting. And he was talking about how animals in the wild, they get stressed a lot. They're worried a lot. They're constantly looking for food. They're constantly trying to prepare and find food for their kids and their family, and they're living in anxiety. This stress has been calculated and has been studied and researched, and it's a proven thing that animals are constantly on this hunt for food. When an animal becomes domesticated and it doesn't have to worry about food, the stress level goes down. My point here is, and the point that Joe Rogan made, is when you kill a deer in the wild, when you kill an elk, let's say with a rifle bullet, that animal dies suddenly with no fear, with no worry about the death that it's headed towards. It's not like being in a slaughterhouse where it sees its friends getting murdered and that fear rises up and that animal deals with all that torture. It's a different experience. It's a sudden death. That animal no longer is going through the stress of being a part of Mother Nature's constant cycle. It did encourage me a little bit. I still have a connection with animals, and I still am not 100% sure about taking the lives of animals for food. But that helped me kind of turn the corner when I ended my year of being a vegetarian. And like I said, I don't judge anybody for their spiritual reasons, for their health reasons on choosing the diet they choose. But that was my experience. And that was one of the things that helped me get over just being a strict vegetarian. I do eat meat now. But through my research, I've tried my best to spend a little extra money and purchase the most ethical meats and really focus on that. So I tried being a vegetarian for a year. I also tried being a vegan for 6 months, and that was a real shit show for me. I had a hard time doing it. I had many cheating moments on accident. When I really got into the vegan lifestyle and learned about all the things that go into it, there's a lot of hypocrisy that I was portraying. For example, I would try to eat a full health vegan diet, but then I would purchase leather goods, or I would be a part of animal byproducts that were used in other things that I was using, or in sometimes the clothing I was wearing. So I was a little bit of a hypocrite in my true vegan lifestyle. It was purely a thing where I tried to be a vegan eater, and I realized, man, I'm not carrying this throughout. I'm not carrying this philosophy all the way through my life, and I probably need to adjust that. That was difficult. That was also the most expensive diet. When I talk about all the different diets that I've been on, the most expensive one was being a vegan. It was also the most offensive. I offended a lot of people. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. People are going to get offended by the choices we make in life. It's okay. That kind of shit happens all the time. But I would say it just constantly offended people. I think people, even though you don't say anything judgment, I would always say I'm practicing being a vegan right now, but no judgment to you. Nobody believes you when you say that. They're worried about what they're eating in front of you. They think that you are judging them and that you're constantly scrutinizing what they're eating. And it caused a lot of people to be offended around me. And maybe some of you vegans out there experience that on a regular basis. I hope it's something that vegans don't have to deal with too much, because and I always gave the disclaimer, like I was saying, I always give that disclaimer, like, I don't judge you. I'm doing this, I'm experimenting, I'm trying to figure out my place in the world and where I want to be with my diet, but I don't judge you. And it's sometimes nice to give those disclaimers. Even as a joke, I would do it quick. I would be out to dinner with my friends and I'd start looking at the menu and realize there weren't a lot of vegan options. And I'd quickly tell the table, hey guys, you know me, I'm not usually this way, but I'm trying a vegan diet, and no judgment on any of you. I'm doing this for philosophical reasons and health reasons. I'm experimenting a little bit, and I love all of you, and there's no judgment. I would get that disclaimer out as quick as I could, but it didn't matter to a lot of people. A lot of people thought, okay, what the fuck? You think you're better than us? Some elitist bullshit. So it was the most offensive diet I went on. So there's that thing to consider when you're choosing a diet. The most offensive diet and the most expensive was the vegan world I was living in. But I think some of the things I spoke about in being a vegetarian connect to that, so I won't spend too much time talking on that. I went back to eating meat after a year and a half of experimenting with a bunch of different diets. And I tried to source the most ethical meats I could. And I will say, in my findings, I've never felt better than being on a high red meat diet. So for me personally, that was the sweet spot. Tons of veggies and high protein and low carbs. It's pretty common. It's, a lot of people talk about the keto diet, the paleo diet. They all have some similarities. The one that feels the best for me, where I feel like I can take on the world, the one where I feel like a superhero, that's the way I always want to feel, is a diet that I'm on now, where I eat lots of red meat, some chicken, some fish, seafood, a bunch of different meats, but a ton of veggies, a ton of greens, very, very low carbs. I try to be super disciplined. The hardest thing for me to cut out is beer. God damn, beer is so good. It's so good. That's been the hardest thing. That's been my biggest, there's those nights where you're working on a project, you're finishing up a project, and you just need a goddamn beer. That's been the hardest one for me, and those things are just terrible. I don't react well to it. Beer does not make me feel good, but I love it so much. It's delicious. And here in Oregon, we have these like beers that are, they're like meals. You order a pint, an IPA pint, some of these small craft brews, and it is like eating a full meal. You're full and bloated and satisfied, and they're just delicious. And there's so many options to choose from, but for me, they don't treat my body well. I don't feel good in the hours after having a beer, and so I'm trying to cut that out. But that's my biggest difficulty. So whiskey, baby, I'm all about the whiskey as my. Well, what's your anti-beer? My anti-beer is whiskey. Cool. So the diet I'm on now is that super low carb diet, and I feel better than I've ever felt in my life. Like I said, I'm in my late 30s, and I feel great. I'm trimming up. I can keep the weight off. I can stay very lean. I can keep the muscles going. This guy and that guy. Let's go. I feel good. I also have been trying that intermittent fasting, intermittent fasting. There's a lot of terms on, what this fasting craze is all about. But basically the way it works for me is I eat one meal a day, and I have a very small window of my eating time. So I don't eat anything when I wake up. I don't eat any lunch, and I skip all the way to dinner time when I have my first meal. And I only have a 2-hour eating window. There's a couple things that I've noticed from trying this. My eating window is from 6 to 8, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I usually end up eating around 7. And one of the things I noticed from this is I actually feel hungry a lot. And I begin to really enjoy that feeling. I begin to really enjoy that feeling of my body going through the process of feeling hungry on a regular basis. And I like the feeling of that a lot more than the feeling of being full and bloated, and that feeling of being completely satisfied plus. I like the feeling of being hungry and knowing that my body is starting to do something and starting to work. It's a super satisfying feeling. I enjoy it. It's become a high for me. It's become a rush. It makes me feel the best. There's lots of studies coming out now about intermittent fasting, about fasting and maybe you fast and only have 3 meals a day. Maybe you fast and have 1 meal a day. Some people are fasting and eating every other day and then just having liquids. So there's a lot of studies coming out. I think the jury's still out on how it all works, but I can tell you just on the feel test, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it for me. So let me walk you through my day and what it looks like. I do drink liquids throughout the day, and I take some supplements even if I'm not eating. But my day basically looks like I wake up and the first thing I do is I make a coffee. I have a cup and a half to 2 cups of coffee in the morning. And I've been doing that bulletproof coffee thing where you put butter in your coffee. Okay, it's delicious. It's changed the way I see coffee. I order butter for my coffee at Starbucks. I order butter for my coffee at the local coffee shops, at restaurants. People are like, what the fuck are you doing? Some people think it's disgusting, but every time I mix up some butter in the coffee and give it to people, they love it. I heard about this because people were saying if you have some fat in your coffee, it helps you absorb the caffeine and spread it out in your body and throughout the day and use it in a more natural way for your body. I don't know how it all works, but for me, I feel great. It's like having a meal. It keeps me sustained. And I guess it's not true fasting if you are having some butter in the morning, but I just put a little butter in my coffee. And so I do have coffee in the morning. I try to drink as much water as I can. That's a new discipline for me. My buddies and I are keeping each other accountable on drinking water. Try to just get a shit ton of water. I'm trying to drink a ton in the morning too, just to like get it in there as much as I can. Sometimes I'll drink I'll drink 2 of my big canisters, to try to get like a quart of water in the morning. And then I know I'm kind of flushing my system and doing that. And so I just have that coffee and water all day until my first meal. For me, this really works until my first meal at 7 p.m. For me, this really works because to me, food is like a nuisance. It's a hindrance to stop my day, to stop my work, and to eat is really a bummer. Sometimes I cheat on this fasting gig because you have a lunch meeting with somebody or you have a date or something and you just don't want to explain the whole goddamn process. You just don't want to explain, I'm doing this fasting thing. So I'll just eat something. I'll get, a small salad or something at a work lunch or a business meeting. And because I just don't want to tell everybody all the time. So it's okay. It's okay to cheat a little bit, motherfuckers. Let's do it. But that's the way my day looks. It's very simple. And then my one meal is I try to get some red meat in there. I try to get some really lean protein, sustainably gathered protein from a place. If I can get elk meat, if I can get meat that was harvested in what I consider to be the right way, I feel better about it. And I have also noticed that eating good beef that's from a good source and that's tracked and traced and has papers, it tastes better and feels better. So that's a real thing. That's pretty much the way I eat right now. And like I said, there's anomalies and there's things that I go through. And so how does it affect in my life? I think I'm able to work out less. So I don't have to work out as much to look the way I want to look on this diet. I retain more muscle, I lose more of the fat, I feel like I look and feel better. And so to me, that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing for me is the feel of it all. I just want to feel good. There's so many fucking things in life that don't make us feel good. There's so many things in life that are causing us to be depressed and worried. I just want one thing that I can control. I've got a ton of issues, trust me, and I'm not perfectly disciplined on this diet at all. I cheat, I mess up. It's okay. But for the most part, this has created a huge impact in my life. I felt better about myself. I felt like, I'll tell you what, when my diet is going well and I'm feeling good and I feel like I'm looking good, when all that is going well, I feel like I'm experiencing progress. And progress is one of those keys to happiness. When you start seeing progress in life, whether it's in your finances, you see progress in your relationships, you see progress in your art or in your career, in your work. When you see progress in your diet, you start feeling good about life. And this is one of those things that you can control. This is one of those things that I can control. And it's harder for some people than others, and we all go through our phases. When I'm depressed, I eat a bunch of bullshit. But I like knowing that when I'm eating well and eating healthy and feeling good, I'm seeing progress in my life, and it's progress that I can control. Because there's a lot of shit in this world that we can't control, but it's nice to have a couple things that we can get our hands on and see some progress and control. And my diet is one of those. It's been a crazy journey. So for me, that's kind of where I'm at on eating. Maybe this helps some of you. It's really cool. This has been another podcast on The Kevin Wright Show, and we will catch up with you guys next time. Thank you, and don't forget to drink some water. Have a good night.